I'm
There you go.
sitting
All
too
right,
far away from the phone.
We're straying off a little bit here. I don't know if you guys remember this. He had a fantastic, 10-year career in the National Hockey League. He and I connected now. We're having a cooking competition online. He's turned into quite the chef as well. So great to see you. Darren Veach, you played for 10 years you had in the NHL?
10 years, the better part of 10 years. I played probably, I played 18 years total, but a lot of it was I went over to Europe after. I played in Germany and Switzerland for a year, and then came back and kind of bounced around the I and the A, and the last city I ended up playing hockey in was Phoenix. So I ended up retiring from hockey in Phoenix.
Very nice. So let's go to the start then. So you grew up in Regina, Saskatchewan?
Born in Saskatoon. Three brothers, all born in Saskatoon. Oldest brother played hockey, but after junior, he got into the banking business, and he's been in that ever since. So something like 40 years. But moved to Regina, where my folks live now, when I was 12, and grew up basically in Regina. Played junior hockey right there at home. So it was.
You did? You played for the Pats right there?
I did. Yeah, played for the Pats. Clark Gillies is a we played enough against Clark Gillies. Clarky's a good friend of mine, just from playing for. We didn't play together, but we played for the same junior team, and paths kind of crossed. And then we kind of after we both retired, we kind of hooked up into the golf business. Played a little bit of the celebrity golf tour for probably about 10, 12 years. So that was a good experience.
Right. Well, thank God Clark is such a good guy, right? I mean, he was a scary man. He was on the ice. We actually had him on our show, the Thursday show. He got a hold of me on Facebook and asked if he'd get on the show, and I was like, absolutely. And it was funny having him on because we're all like, God, that was one of the scariest guys ever played. But he was such a good guy.
Especially with both of us being defensemen, and he's that big winger that would just kind of come into the front of the net and just growl. So I just let him stand there really and kind of play off of him.
He really didn't have much of a choice, right? I mean, if he didn't want to move, he wasn't moving. So he was
exactly.
I tell the story all the time. Carol Vadney had become a coach, and he was really fantastic to me. Like, he really saw something in me and helped me a lot. And he said to me one time before an Islander game, he says, "Tommy, you go to the front of the net with that Gillies, you punch him right in the chest." So I said, there's that point with that. If he told me to do it, I said, I'm doing it. So I went to the front of the net and whistle blew, and I punched Gillies in the chest. He looked at me with that one eyebrow going across the top of his head, right? And he goes, "What do you want?" And I'm like, "I'm going bad. Like, what do I do now?" So it's funny. It's good, man.
Yeah, well, he's certainly a gentleman, and I think he's one of the nicer guys in hockey, in the hockey world. But certainly one of those guys that you didn't want to get on his wrong side.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so you're drafted. So you went and played with the Regina Pats, and then you were drafted by Washington. Is that right?
Drafted by Washington. I guess my claim to fame would be that I was drafted ahead of Paul Coffey.
There you go.
But it's kind of fun to joke about, because certainly Paul went on to have a super career and Hall of Fame sort of stuff. But drafted by Washington. I played with Washington for. I got traded in my 6th year at the deadline, and I think when you get traded for the first time, it's always a little bit of a shock to your system. You're like, oh man, they don't want me. But the good side of that is that somebody else did. So I got traded to Detroit and was lucky enough to play with Yzerman and Probert, Kosar. We had such a fun group of guys, but. Did well in the playoffs, but we lost both times to Edmonton in the semifinals.
Right.
So that's about as close as I got to the Stanley Cup. But it was a good experience. I like Detroit, and I certainly loved the golf in Michigan after the hockey season.
Good. What round did you get drafted in with?
I was 1985th pick overall. I think Wickenheiser, Dave Babich. Dennis Savard, Larry Murphy, then me. I think it was Rick Lance. There were a lot of defensemen taken this year. Rick Lance, and then Koff. Oh, geez. I think we had from our my last year junior team, Wickenheiser, Mike Blaisdell. We had Ron Flockhart. I think Ron signed as a free agent with Philadelphia,
Right.
but we had 5 guys in the first round that
Wow.
got drafted from my team. So it was.
Is that right? Eh?
It
Wow.
was good.
And
Yeah.
did you go to the draft back then?
I did go to the draft. I went. It was still being held in Montreal at the Forum.
Right.
And let's see, it was the year of Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray Leonard were fighting in the Forum. So they were staying in the same hotel as me. So as we were, me and my agent, Herb Pinder.
Yeah, Herb.
And so we got to see them and their entourage. I figured you probably know Herb just from being in the agent business, but he was James Patrick.
Yep.
Agent
that's how I first met him. I remember when he came in the locker room with James. Yeah, we lost Herb, right? Didn't he pass away?
Oh dear, I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that.
Yeah, he was good. He was a good guy. He was a good agent too. Did a good job. So one of our listeners here, loyal listeners, Barry Shelley, he's up in Cooperstown, New York. He remembers watching you play with the Hershey Bears. So,
okay, yeah, my first year, I kind of went up and down that we called it the Hershey Highway, but playing in Hershey was a fun experience for me. Brian Murray was my coach, and he was my coach my last year junior, so we kind of followed each other. And then my second year, Brian was brought up from the Bears to coach the Caps, and then he ended up coaching there for like 5 or 6 years. Yeah,
wow.
yeah. Brian was he was quite a mentor to me. God rest his soul. I thought he was a really good coach. Unfortunately, never got to the finals, I think, but never won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah,
which would be something pretty special for a guy like that.
Okay. So you're drafted in 1980. Did you turn pro right away? Did you go back to junior?
No, I turned pro right away. I was lucky enough the year before the draft. I think it was, remember the underage draft was 78, I think was the first year of the underage.
Yeah.
So 79, right before my training camp for the Pats, I got to go to Montreal and play or skate with I signed a free agent tryout with Montreal. Del Wilson was a big part of the Regina Pat organization, and he was affiliated with Montreal. Right. So he got me a tryout. So I got to go skate with the Canadians for a week before they sent me back to junior. But that was one of the best experiences I've ever had, and I think it developed my confidence to be able to go out there and skate with those guys because they had just finished winning their 4th Stanley Cup in a row. So I didn't think there was much chance of me making the team, but the experience was fantastic.
I know for me, I agree with you totally. At the end of my senior year of college, the Rangers already drafted me. And I was drafted after my sophomore year. And they brought me in to play in the playoffs with New Haven at the end of my senior year. And I didn't really do that well, but it was that, just like you probably, right, it's kind of that first exposure to pro hockey. So it kind of, now when you go to training camp the next year, okay, now I know what to expect and everything, right? So you found out how strong you really needed to be, especially, in front of the net. So I've ever going to one practice. I don't know if you remember this guy's name, Alan Hankslavin. Oh yeah.
He's a guy from, So we were just messing around in practice, and he says, Vici, I'm going to pin you in that corner, and you got to try and get away from me, or just get out of his grasp. I couldn't. Right. He got me in the corner, and he was laughing. He says, I just couldn't get away from him. So I realized how strong he is. Right. I need to be a little bit stronger.
Did he start up in Washington as well?
Yeah.
He was famous because Phil Esposito, in my first year, Phil played first half of the year and then retired halfway through. And he got into a confrontation with Alan Hankslavin. And I've never heard this before. Phil says to him, he says, when I'm retired, I'm going to become general manager, and I'm going to trade for you, and I'm going to send you to the minors. And Hankslavin was like, what do you say to that? Like, you could tell he was just dumbfounded. Like, we're all that's pretty cool. And he became GM. I never really traded for Alan, but that was one of the funniest things I heard, especially when it's your rookie year, you hear a guy like a Phil Esposito, the stuff that he's done.
Oh yeah. A classic quick line. I think there was a lot of trash talk going on as there is now, but some of the guys just are a little bit slicker than others.
Totally, yeah, definitely. Okay, so then you're up and down with Washington there. So you started what, the 81-82 season? Was that your first year?
Well, 80 was my first year. So 80, I think I ended up playing 60 games up and about 30 games down, and then went down for the playoffs because Hershey was making a push towards the Calder.
Right.
And then the next year I started in Hershey. I played the first 10 games, and I think I had like 5 goals and 6 assists. So I was kind of on fire down in the minors.
Right.
So then I got called up, and then Brian Murray got Gary Green was fired, and then Brian Murray took over, and then I ended up staying up the rest of the time. And then the third year was the year that we traded for Brian Englom, Rod Langway, Craig Laughlin, and Dougie Jarvis.
That's right.
So we just turned in, the team just turned around, with Langway. He just dominated the defensive zone, and he was my partner. But right. We're in Pittsburgh. It's the 10th game of the season. We're in Pittsburgh, and the puck's getting rung around my side of the board, so I'm going to keep it in. But I got Malone coming from one angle, and then Paul Baxter coming at me this way. So I go to keep it in. I get hit on both sides,
right.
Go into the boards, don't fall down, but turn around, and my left shoulder was just like, something's just not right. So I shattered my collarbone in 3 places. So that took care of I was out for, I think it was 6-7 weeks. Came back. We were playing in LA. I'm not sure if you were there.
I don't think. I got treated in 87, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was before then, and I had the puck, and Jimmy Fox was on my backside, and he just gave me a little shot in the back, and I felt my collarbone pop again. And that was it. That was all she wrote. So I was out I ended up playing only 10 games that season. So a little injury prone with the collarbone, but it's all healed up. Hasn't hurt my golf game any. So.
Right. So then, what year did you end up getting traded?
I got traded the deadline of 86 to Detroit, 85-86 season.
Right.
So
and David
went to
David Poyle.
David Poyle, yeah. David Poyle was the GM.
Great guy, right? Did you get along with him pretty well?
Oh yeah. Really, really good. He said when he called me in to trade me, you kind of know on the deadline, it's like, oh, no, this isn't going to be good news. So I go into his office, and he says, Darren, I have some good news and I have some bad news. The good news is you've been traded.
Right.
The bad news is you've been traded to Detroit. And I'm like, Detroit, I only paid attention to the teams in the Patrick division, because we played each other so much. And I said, well, how's Detroit doing? And he says, they only have 5 wins, but you're going to be able to go there and help them. So
is that right? They only had 5 wins at the time? Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
We ended up with 13 wins. It was, I think it was a record for the least amount of points in a season for a hockey team.
Right.
So 13 wins. 13 wins and 5 ties, I think we had, something like that.
And then at that time, Detroit.
I'm sorry?
Coaching.
Brad Park.
Oh, that's right. Brad Park.
Jimmy Devellano was the GM, and Brad Park was the coach. Parky as the coach was quite an experience, especially with the guys he had for as far as a tough team.
Right.
Probert and Koser, and
wasn't Harold Snepsy?
Harold Sneps was my roommate. Snepsy, Ha Cha Cha Snepsy.
What's his nickname? What was that?
He always used to say Ha Cha Cha. No, whenever, say if we were going out for lunch or whatever, he's like, I got the tab. Ha Cha Cha.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that. I liked him as a player. He was a hard-nosed guy.
Yeah. He was a bit of a mauler, though. He'd get in there and he'd get you in close and try to suffocate you.
Steve Yzerman, what was Yzerman's first year?
Yzerman's first year was 85. Oh, okay. 85, 86.
Right. Okay.
But he was coming off an injury too, I believe. But what a great guy. What a class hockey person without question.
He seems like that. It was Gerard Gallant there as well.
Spuddy, Gerard Gallant, yeah, he was there. I liked Gerard was a good guy. What a good teammate he was. Stand up for anybody.
Yeah, he's a great coach too. I think he's a fantastic coach.
I was surprised that they let him go in Vegas. Yeah. I don't know what was behind that, but he was a good coach.
Yeah, there you go. Speaking of coaching, I want to keep on the timeline we're going, but we got a good question by Barry again, so he's doing his homework. So you had dual roles. You're a coach and player with Phoenix?
Oh, yes. I was that was the year after the broadcasting, and the Phoenix Mustangs came to town in the WCHL. We call it the Who Cares Hockey League. But all I really wanted to do was coach. I didn't want to play, but Adam Keller was the GM at the time. He says, it would take you long to get into shape. So sure enough, he talked me into playing and coaching. Right. That first 2 weeks of training camp was just sheer hell, because I hadn't been working out that much. And I was like, oh God, for the first 2 weeks, my face was so red. All right. And we went up, we played a couple exhibition games up in Alaska, up in Anchorage. Oh. And they had a really tough team. Right. So I go in there and I figure, okay, they're going to show me some respect. I played in the National Hockey League. No respect at all. I got hit so hard the first couple of shifts. I'm like, I got to the bench and I said, what was I thinking? Yeah, okay. But I got back into shape, and it was fun. I had a good time.
How was that being a player and a coach? I mean, how do you handle? Was it like the whole respect thing with the players, but you're also a teammate? I mean, then changing lines, all that stuff. That's gotta be pretty tough, right?
Well, I wasn't the head coach. I was the assistant coach. So we all Brad McCaughey was the head coach. So I just help out in practice. Kind of have these kids learn by example, sort of thing. Sure. So let some of my experience rub off on them.
Good. I remember when I got hurt. You talk about the respect thing because you're an NHL player. I remember I'd hurt my back in LA, and Phoenix was their minor league team, and they'd come back and play. They sent me down there to play right around Christmas time, play a couple of games, and I'm the same way. I was awful there because I felt like the NHL level, like things when you come around the back of the net, you got the puck, almost guaranteed that at the NHL level, there's going to be a guy at the hash marks there. It's an automatic. That's who you pass to. So I've done that for all my life. That was just an automatic play. Get it up to the forward as quick as possible. But in the minors, that wasn't always the case, right? Because there's young kids in the game, so you come around the board sometimes, and there's nobody there, and I'm panicking. Like, I'm so used to.
That's when you dump it off the glass, right?
Definitely. We had one. I think it was Robbie Nichols. I'm pretty sure it's Robbie Nichols. Remember him?
Oh yeah.
I can't remember. I think he was playing for San Diego or something. And same thing. He was running me all the time, trying to get me going. I'm going like, what? I played the league for 10 years. For God's sake, this kid's running around. So it was pretty funny doing that, Jeff. So back to the timeline. You're in Detroit, and then what happens after Detroit? Where'd you head?
Detroit. I got traded in. After 3 years, I got traded in the summertime to Toronto for Miroslav Fricher.
That's right.
Went to Toronto, and at that time in Toronto, you think as a kid growing up in Canada, it'd be great, great place to play. Who doesn't want to play in Toronto with all the, media coverage and attention that you get? But that was kind of during the time when they were transitioning through 3 or 4 different coaches, and and it just wasn't very stable. I ended up only playing 37 games for them. I played most of the time down in Newmarket. Where their farm team was in the AHL. Right. So I ended up playing 37 games. I got called up for the playoffs, but I was part of the Black Aces. Oh. Didn't get to practice with the team.
Was Mark Osborne there?
Yep. Good. Mark Osborne, Eddie Olchuk, Gary Lehman, L.I. Frady, Boris Salming.
Mike Allison, was he there or is he gone?
Who's that?
Mike Allison?
No, he wasn't there. He was gone. It's
probably in LA with me. Mark Osborne's a great guy. As you know, very religious guy, but great guy.
Yeah.
he didn't expect anybody else. He's very respectful, and everybody respectful of him. He sat beside me in the locker room at our practice rink. And I went to him one day. I said, listen, this is between you and I, and whatever answers your answer, and I'll respect that totally. I said, do you mind if we joke around a little bit about the religion thing? And if it bothers you, I clearly won't do it. So he said, no, Tom, it's fun. Yeah, I'm fine with that. So, but I didn't tell anybody else that we had this conversation. So he'd start coming in the locker room, and he'd sit down beside me and go, praise the Lord, Mark, praise the Lord. And he'd go, praise the Lord, Tommy. And everybody's looking at me like, what are you doing, you idiot? Like, and I didn't tell anybody that, Mark and I had this discussion. So that went on forever. And he was a fun guy. I liked him a lot. But,
he is a good guy. Yeah. Really good guy. A lot of the guys that played for the Leafs have all stay in that area, in the Toronto area. Like when they have an alumni game or anything like that, they don't have a problem getting guys to play.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I agree. So then you just were in Toronto, that 1 year?
Just the 1 year, and then the next 2 years I was in Newmarket. Then I got traded. My coach at the time was Frank Anzalone. I don't know if you know that name? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, whenever we had practice, it was a 2.5 hour practice. And you know how much players like 2.5 hour practices. Not at all. But I got traded to Peoria in the IHL. Bob Plager was the coach who just passed, unfortunately. But they were in the midst of a 18-game win streak, playing with 13 players. And so they only had 3D. So they traded for me. So I came in as the fourth defenseman.
Wow.
Lost the first game we played, and then we went on to win 10 more going into the playoffs. And we ended up winning the Turner Cup. So it was it was a great thing for me to get traded there. And then I ended up signing just an IHL contract for the next 3 years just to play with Peoria. I went into Dennis Sears' office and I says, listen, Dennis, I don't really want to go anywhere. I said, just sign me for $70,000 and I'll play for you for 3 years, and I'll be happy. So that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Then I ended up going to back to Phoenix, but
good.
It was a great experience.
Good. And Barry's not far. He's doing his homework on you here. So you went over and played in Germany. Was that after?
I did.
Phoenix?
Germany, and then we had a camp up in Switzerland, up in Rosa, Switzerland. I think it was up about 15,000 feet, if that's possible.
Yeah, wow.
So we're sucking for air up there. No, but I played in Germany. That was fun. I liked it. I like the odd beer from time to time, and Germans are pretty proud of their beer. So it was fun going to a couple of the Hofbrau houses.
Right. So okay. So you after Peoria, you went to Phoenix for a couple more years, and then you went to Germany. Is that how that happened?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. So you got around. You hockey. You bounced around, but it's good stuff too, right? You got to play in Germany, all those. So you enjoyed
some. I did. It was obviously the bigger ice surface, that sort of thing.
Right.
I was hoping I didn't lose your sound, but
we're good.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I got to travel around Europe after the season was over. So just jump on the train and, go to Munich or go to Austria. It was fun. Or you jump on the Autobahn. Just got to make sure you stay out of that left lane if you're not going 180 miles an hour.
That's right. So then you, after Germany, the European tour, so then you came back to Phoenix again?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a house in Phoenix, so yeah.
And that's where you finished playing?
That's where I finished playing. Yeah. I got cut by a skate across my right wrist, behind the net, playing against San Diego Gulls, and it was a pretty gory sight. Let's just say that ended it for me. Oh, I still ended up playing more after it healed, but it was a pretty gnarly gash.
Okay. How's it now? No
it's fine. Now? It's a little bit of nerve or numbness, but other than that, it's fine.
Yeah. So then you got into golfing right away.
Well, I played a lot of golf growing up as I started playing when I was 12, and then just kind of developed in the summer times as, when hockey season was over. But I started playing on some mini tours, and I was doing okay, but not quite making enough money to survive on. So I ended up getting involved with the celebrity tour through actually Jeremy Roenick got me hooked up with it. I played in the National Hockey League golf tournament in Newfoundland, and JR was there. So I ended up winning that tournament, but because I wasn't an NHLer, I couldn't win the prize money. So I ended up finishing second, and JR won the prize money. And he says, Beachy, that's just not right. He says, have you ever heard of the CGA? And I says, what's the CGA? Celebrity Golf Association. There's a tournament next week in Chicago. I'm going to get you into it. So he got me into the tournament, went to Chicago, finished second, behind Steve Bartkowski. He was the quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons.
Sure. Yep.
Finished second behind him. Ended up making a check for like $25,000. Wow. And got to know the guy who's running the tour. And then from then on, I just kept getting invited to tournaments. So at one point we had 15 tournaments for the year, but you could easily go, if you played well enough, you go out there, you could make $100,000, no problem.
Nice. Very good.
But sometimes you end up having a little too much fun.
Oh yeah.
And I think that happened a few times, but that's how Clark Gillies was on there, a bunch of hockey guys, Pierre LaRouche.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Mario, JR, of course, a ton of hockey guys. And the hockey guys are, not to pat ourselves on the back, but we're just great guys.
I know, yeah. They're fun to hang around. Isn't it true? Like, even like you and I, we never played with each other at all. We only played against each other. It's the first time we really talked to each other. It's like we're all like the same guys. It really doesn't matter whether you played with each other or not, right? So
that's the camaraderie part of everything. Whether you've played with somebody or not, you've both experienced the same lifestyle, and you just know how to get along.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it doesn't matter. That's a great thing about it. Like I said before, having on Clark Gillies, it was at first it kind of amazed me, but then I thought about it after. Well, it shouldn't really, right? Because we play. In fact, a lot of ways we played against each other so much we really knew each other without
right,
each other.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that lasted for a while. So now again, we hooked up more on Facebook. Facebook, because you're doing some pretty good cooking now too.
Yeah, I guess you could say I have a passion for it. Just my wife's in the hospitality industry, and so I get to meet all the chefs that work for her. So I've got probably 4 or 5 chefs on speed dial. If I ever have any problems with anything, I just call one of them up and say, what would you do with this, or that sort of thing. And so they give me little tips, and I've got plenty of time on my hands, so it's fun to kind of plan out a bit of a menu like you do for your Sunday dinners, and it's like I think it's therapeutic.
Oh yeah, totally. I love it. And I get in the kitchen, the music's going, and you get a glass of wine going the whole bit, and it's a real presentation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's gotta look pretty too,
totally.
You gotta have,
you gotta plate it properly. Yeah.
I really enjoy it. It's fun.
Well, it's funny. When I first got divorced from my boy's mother, they were like 4 and 6 years old, and I couldn't cook at all. Like I told you yesterday, we were talking that I cooked tuna noodle one night, and hamburger helper the next, and that was it. We either go to Boston Park or something. It was actually great, the three of us, because we would sit down together and watch Emerald and all these kind of shows, and we'd learn how to cook. And my boys they're obviously grown men now, and they're very good cooks as well. But it was funny. We always wanted to have like our Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners. And we had to have the same thing. We were going to have turkey and stuffing. So we would cheat. We get the stovetop stuffing and the pre-made gravy and all that. But I would buy a frozen turkey, and I'd put the frozen turkey in the oven frozen. And because I didn't know any better, and I'd put it in there, and the turkey would come out fine. But then I'd reach inside, and it was all like the giblets and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I didn't know what it was. And I was saying to them, like, why are we getting this garbage in our turkey all the time? Like every year we get this garbage. So we had this
wrapped.
Yeah.
It's wrapped in wax paper too.
Yeah. And so we had this couple come over we got to be friends with, and we invited them over for, I think it was Christmas, whatever. They came over, and the woman was in the cabin in the kitchen. I took the turkey out, and I reached in. I said, "There's this stuff in the turkey again, right? How's that happening?" She looks at me like, "Are you being serious?" And I'm going, yes, I'm always getting this garbage in my turkey. She says, it's the giblets, you idiots. So it's funny.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Well, growing up in Saskatchewan, I think my mom did most all the cooking, and she used to make giblet stew.
Oh,
Yeah, so I think it was an economical thing. But I'll tell you, we ate it though. Anything in some kind of gravy is usually pretty good, as long as you got mashed potatoes.
Yeah, my mother, God rest her soul, she ended up being a great cook. But earlier on, when she was really learning how to cook, when I was smaller, when she cooked meat, like a roast beef or something, it was cooked all the way through. It was like there was no red left in it. But she made fantastic gravy, so we you slathered the gravy on it. It worked out all right. So.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, I'm glad to see you doing well. I know you've got a young daughter there, with 11-year-old daughter.
She turns 11 April 8th. Right. Tomorrow we're leaving. We're going to drive to Nashville, and then from there we're going to go to Florida, just up on the Panhandle for their spring break. My wife's brother has 2 kids, so we're all going to go together and hang out in Nashville for 2 days, and then just go down to Florida. Yeah,
that's great. That'll be fun. That sounds good. Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm really glad to see you're doing well, and I'm glad we caught up. Well, now we got to get a little bit of competition, or maybe not competition. Maybe we'll team up together for cooking and put on some presentation or something like that. So,
we could do that. We could work on something, I'm sure.
Good deal.
I got all the tools outside in the backyard. I got a 32-inch Blackstone grill. I got a Blackstone pizza oven that you can cook anything, and it rotates. The pizza turns out great. You can cook it in like 3 minutes. And then I bought a smoker about 6 months ago, so I've been dabbling in with smoking pork shoulder. I haven't done a brisket on it yet, but I'll probably wait till summer to get that done. But it's fun. I really enjoy it.
That's excellent. I'm jealous. I'm gonna have to get it. I've got all the stuff in the kitchen, like the air fryer and the juicer and all that kind of stuff. But
I asked you about your air fryer, and we have one here. I haven't used it yet, so
well, once you get going on that, you'll like that once you get going on it. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Good. All right, bud. Great to see you. Maybe we'll have you on again. Have a good trip. Happy birthday to your daughter. Fantastic seeing you.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
See you, buddy.